The late afternoon sun was a cruel, unrelenting eye, burning down on the pristine, manicured lawns of the Grand Oaks community. The air, thick with the smell of chlorine and freshly cut grass, shimmered with heat. Alex, his shirt already clinging to his back, wrestled a large, overstuffed duffel bag from the trunk of his vintage Mustang. It wasn't a show car, not yet, but the '68 Fastback was his pride and joy, a rolling project he'd spent the last 4 years and every spare dime on. The duffel held towels, goggles, snacks, and the inflatable shark his nephew Leo was obsessed with. He parked just to the side of the designated pool parking, a small gravel lot that was perpetually full. The spot he chose was on a slight incline, a wide, unused patch of asphalt just off the main drive, directly beside the low decorative wall that separated the parking area from the pool's entrance gate. It was the perfect spot to unload. He could see Leo already splashing in the shallow end and his sister, Maria, waving from her lounge chair. He'd just hoisted the heavy bag onto his shoulder when he heard the voice. A voice like a rusty hinge and a slammed door all in one. "I don't think so, young man." Alex turned. Deirdre Vance stood with her hands on her hips, her posture a rigid testament to self-righteous authority. A perfectly coiffed platinum bob framed a face pinched with disapproval. Her floral sundress was an assault of pastel colors that seemed to radiate a cold aura of judgment. She was the Grand Oaks Community Association president, and in her mind, that made her a minor deity. "Excuse me?" Alex asked, genuinely confused. "That spot is not for parking," she said, her eyes narrowing. "It's a fire lane. A service lane. It's for emergency vehicles and authorized personnel. Not for personal cars, especially not that." She gestured with a dismissive flick of her wrist toward his Mustang, the deep green paint gleaming under the sun. "It's not marked," Alex replied, his voice calm despite the immediate spike of annoyance. He looked around. There were no yellow curbs, no parking signs, no white lettering on the asphalt. Just a wide, empty space. "I'm just unloading. I'll move it as soon as I get this stuff inside." Deirdre's thin lips pursed. "That is beside the point. This is a private community. We have rules. Your sister should have explained them to you." "She's my sister." "Not my parole officer," Alex retorted, a flicker of heat entering his tone. He regretted it instantly. Arguing with Deirdre was like trying to have a rational conversation with a brick wall. "The lot is full," she huffed, a theatrical sigh escaping her lips. "You will park in a designated space like everyone else." "I'm just unloading, Deirdre," Maria called out from her chair, her voice a soothing balm. "He'll be gone in 5 minutes." Deirdre didn't even glance at her. Her gaze was locked on Alex, unwavering and cold. 5 minutes is all it takes for a tow truck to arrive. I will have it towed, Mr. Ramirez, and you will be billed for it. We have a zero-tolerance policy for parking violations." Alex felt the familiar hot rush of frustration. He had to be at this pool every weekend for Leo, who lived with Maria, but every visit came with a new challenge from Deirdre. He'd been told his swim trunks were too baggy, his music too loud, his laughter too boisterous. This was just the latest frontier in her crusade against anything she deemed nonconformist. He could back down, get in his car, and drive to the overflow lot 2 streets over. It would take him 15 minutes to walk back in the scorching heat. Or he could stand his ground. He looked at Leo, a small, vibrant splash of joy in the cool blue water, and at Maria, her face etched with a silent plea to just let it go. The duffel bag suddenly felt 100 pounds heavier. He needed to get inside. "Fine," he said, his voice clipped. He dropped the bag and went to his car, yanking the driver's side door open. The metallic clang echoed in the oppressive stillness. He started the engine, the low rumble of the Mustang's V8, a defiant growl against the suburban quiet. The noise alone made Deirdre flinch. He didn't drive to the overflow lot. He drove a short loop, pulling his car into the first open spot in the main lot. The spot was far from the entrance, and he was now blocked in on both sides by 2 oversized SUVs. But he was in a designated space. He slammed the door shut, the sound a punctuation mark on his simmering anger. He walked back, passing Deirdre, who was now watching him with a predatory, satisfied smirk. "See?" she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "It wasn't so hard after all, was it? Alex didn't answer. He picked up the duffel bag, his grip tight enough to whiten his knuckles, and walked past her, the scent of her floral perfume feeling like a physical violation. He spent the next 2 hours at the pool, trying to ignore the simmering resentment. The anger felt like a physical weight in his stomach. He watched Leo laughing and splashing and pretended he wasn't thinking about Deirdre, about the ridiculousness of it all. As he was leaving, he saw her again. She was standing by his car in the lot, her phone pressed to her ear. He heard her voice, low and conspiratorial, but the tone was unmistakable. "Yes, it's a green Mustang, a 68, I think. Looks like a junker. And the owner's attitude is deplorable. We'll need it gone." "Yes, now." Alex's blood ran cold. He stopped dead in his tracks. Maria, walking ahead of him, turned. "What is it?" He shook his head, a knot forming in his throat. He started jogging toward his car, the duffel bag bouncing awkwardly on his shoulder. He saw a flash of silver and black turning a corner at the far end of the street. A tow truck. "Deirdre! What are you doing?" he yelled. She turned to him, her expression a mask of feigned innocence that didn't quite hide the triumphant glint in her eyes. "I'm simply enforcing the community rules, Mr. Ramirez. A car of that, well, vintage, parked where it doesn't belong. I'm in a spot." "A designated spot!" he yelled, pointing at the parking lines. "Ah, but you were illegally parked earlier," she said, her voice a sugary poison. "And you were rude to a community officer. I believe you need a lesson in respect. Towing a vehicle is a very effective way to teach it." Alex reached his car just as the tow truck pulled up beside it. The driver, a burly man with a tired expression, looked from Alex to Deirdre, then back. He didn't say a word. He just began to strap the chains to Alex's front tires. "Stop!" Alex shouted, placing his hand on the truck's fender. "You can't do this. This is a legal spot." "He's violating a no-tolerance community policy, which is a violation of his sister's residency agreement," Deirdre chirped, her voice light and victorious. "He was previously parked illegally in a service lane. This is a warning, or rather a final act of enforcement. But the lot is full. The only spot was this one," Alex pleaded, the heat of the sun and the red-hot anger in his chest starting to make him dizzy. "Then perhaps you should have found an alternative," Deirdre said, her smile broadening. She glanced from his car to the empty patch of asphalt near the pool, the very spot he'd tried to use just an hour ago. "That spot is for community needs. It is not for personal use, especially not for that." She gestured again at his Mustang, her eyes now filled with pure disdain. "This spot is not for your kind of people and your kind of car. It belongs to the community." The tow truck driver, seeing no way out of the conflict, simply shrugged and went about his work. He knew these battles. He just wanted to get paid. Alex stood there, helpless, watching as the chains cinched tight. As the front tires of his car were lifted off the ground, a single, final act of humiliation at the hands of Deirdre Vance. He felt a deep, raw, gut-wrenching despair. She hadn't just gotten his car towed. She had done it out of spite, to teach him a lesson, to assert her power. He felt beaten. As the tow truck pulled away, dragging his car and his pride with it, he looked over at Maria. She was on her phone, arguing with Deirdre. He shook his head, his mind a blur of anger and helplessness. He had to get out of there. He needed to be alone. He walked to the main gate, his footsteps heavy. He passed a maintenance worker who was sweeping up leaves. The worker looked at him with a silent, sympathetic glance. Alex got to the corner, pulling out his phone. He needed to call the towing company to find out where his car was going. He was fuming, his hands shaking with rage. As he waited for the call to connect, an old memory surfaced. A story his grandfather had told him about a peculiar section of the Grand Oaks community, a remnant of the old development plan, a small unincorporated lot. He had always dismissed it as a forgotten detail, but now a wild, impossible thought began to form. He opened his browser and navigated to the county property records. He typed in the community address, zoomed in, and found the site plan. He traced the boundary lines, past the community center, the pool, the main parking lot, and then he saw it. The same weirdly shaped patch of asphalt, the one with the single decorative wall. He cross-referenced the property identification number. It was its own parcel, a distinct, privately owned lot, separate from the community association's deed. His thumb scrolled down the page, his heart pounding in his chest. And then he saw it. The most beautiful, most dangerous 2 words he had ever read in his life. For sale. He looked back at the empty, freshly swept patch of pavement, at the decorative wall, at the sparkling pool just beyond it. He thought of Deirdre, her smug, triumphant face. "No, it doesn't belong to the community," he muttered, the words a low, venomous promise. "It belongs to whoever buys it." The walk to the tow yard was a pilgrimage of pure, unfiltered rage. Alex's phone was hot in his hand, the number of the tow company still on the screen. He'd made the call from the street corner, standing in the merciless sun, and the conversation had been a masterclass in bureaucratic indifference. Cost for towing is $150. Storage is $25 per day. Your vehicle is at our depot on 5th Street, the man on the other end had said, his voice a flat monotone. And you'll have to pay in cash or with a card, no checks. And just for your information, sir, most community associations have a zero-tolerance policy for repeat offenders. Just saying. Alex hadn't said anything. He'd just hung up, the words repeat offender and zero tolerance echoing in his ears. He walked for what felt like miles, his shoes scuffing on the hot asphalt, his mind replaying the scene at the pool gate. Deirdre's face, her smug, venomous smile, was a vivid, taunting image. She hadn't just had his car towed. She had done it to assert her power, to teach him a lesson, to make him feel small. And it had worked. For a moment. The tow yard was a grimy, chain-link enclosure, littered with the automotive wreckage of other people's bad days. He saw his Mustang immediately, parked in a far corner looking out of place and defeated. Its beautiful green paint, which he had painstakingly polished 100 times, was now smudged with a thick layer of dust. The driver, the same burly man from the pool, was behind the counter. He took Alex's card without a word, swiped it, and handed him a receipt and his keys. "Community associations are a real pain, man," the driver said, a flicker of something like sympathy in his tired eyes. "They got it in for you. They just got it in for you. Nothing you can do but suck it up and move on." Alex took his keys, the cold metal a shock against his palm. He wanted to scream. He wanted to tell the driver about the property records, about the wild, impossible idea that was now a burning certainty in his mind. But he didn't. He just nodded, mumbled a thank you, and walked to his car. The drive back to Maria's apartment was silent. The low rumble of his engine, once a comforting sound, now felt hollow. He felt a deep, raw ache of humiliation. He parked in Maria's building's designated visitor space, the same one he'd used 100 times before, and sat in the car for a long moment, the key still in the ignition. He had to tell Maria. He had to explain. She was waiting for him in the kitchen, her face a mask of worry. "Alex, what happened?" "The tow company." "And Deirdre called me. She said you were aggressive. She said she's going to file a complaint with the board and have my visitor privileges revoked. Alex, I can't lose this place. It's the only decent, affordable housing I could find." The anger, which had been a hot, solid mass in his stomach, now shifted. It turned into a cold, hard resolve. Deirdre hadn't just targeted him. She'd gone after Maria. She had used his sister's well-being as a weapon. This was no longer just about a parking spot. This was about family. "She's lying, Maria," he said, his voice calm but firm. "I wasn't aggressive. She just had it in for me from the moment I pulled up. And she got it towed on purpose, even when I was parked in a legal spot. She did it to teach us a lesson." Maria's eyes welled with tears. "A lesson? Alex, what kind of person does that?" "I don't understand." "I do," he said, a grim smile forming on his lips. "I understand exactly what kind of person she is. And I know how to deal with her." He walked to the small desk in the corner of the living room, ignoring Maria's worried questions. He opened his laptop, the screen a stark white light in the dim room. He logged into the county property records website again. The page was exactly where he'd left it. He found the property ID number, the address, and the name of the listing agent. Beatrice Thorne, Coldwell Banker. He wrote her name down. He then checked his bank account. He'd been saving for years for a full-scale restoration of the Mustang's body and engine. The numbers on the screen were a testament to his dedication. It was just enough. just enough to do what he was about to do. He picked up his phone, his thumb hovering over the number. He took a deep breath. He wasn't just buying a piece of land. He was buying a declaration of war. He pressed call. Beatrice Thorne's voice was as dry as a desert wind, but efficient. Beatrice Thorne, what can I do for you? My name is Alex Ramirez. I'm calling about the property listing for the Grand Oaks community lot, parcel 047A, the one next to the pool. There was a pause on the other end, a long skeptical silence. That's an unusual inquiry. Are you a developer? No, I'm a resident, Alex said. Well, a guest. My sister lives there, and I want to buy that property. You're aware it's a tiny, unbuildable piece of land? The last owner, Mr. Henderson, tried to get it rezoned for an accessory building, a cabana or something. He got nowhere with the community association. That's why he's selling it. It's useless. I don't want to build on it, Alex said, his heart pounding. I want to buy it for a very specific purpose. Which is? Beatrice asked, a note of genuine curiosity now in her voice. To park my car on it. Another silence. This one was longer. Alex heard the faint rustle of papers on the other end. He was bracing for her to laugh, to dismiss him, to tell him he was crazy. But when she spoke, her voice had shifted. It was now laced with a cynical, knowing amusement. You're the one with the Mustang, aren't you? I just got a call from the Grand Oaks Community Association president. Deirdre Vance said you were a deplorable character who was not suitable to live in her community, much less own property there. Alex's blood went cold. She had wasted no time. She was trying to sabotage him before he even had a chance. She's trying to stop me, he said, the words a low hiss. She's trying, Beatrice confirmed, her voice now almost friendly. So tell me, why are you buying a patch of asphalt just to park your car on it? Alex took a deep breath. He told her everything. About Deirdre, about his car, about the 2-hour wait at the pool and the spiteful towing, and about his sister. He didn't hold back. He spoke with a quiet, burning intensity, pouring all his pent-up rage and frustration into the phone. When he finished, there was a long pause. He could hear Beatrice breathing. He expected her to say it was a crazy idea, that it was a petty, useless gesture. Okay, kid, she finally said, and Alex knew from her tone that she had made her decision. I like your style. And I can't stand Deirdre Vance. She's tried to torpedo every single one of my Grand Oaks listings. The woman's a menace. Let's get this done. I'll send you the paperwork. The seller is taking cash only, and he wants to close fast. Alex thanked her profusely, his mind racing. Cash. That meant he'd have to drain his savings. But it also meant no bank loans, no messy financial review, no long process that Deirdre could somehow interfere with. It was perfect. A clean, quick strike. He spent the next 2 days in a blur. He withdrew his savings, a hollowed-out feeling in his stomach at seeing the number in his bank account plummet to 0. The money he had saved for the car of his dreams was now going to buy a patch of land he'd use to park that very car. The irony wasn't lost on him. Finally, the day of the closing arrived. He met Beatrice at a small private office. She had the documents laid out on a polished mahogany table. He sat across from her, his hands trembling slightly as he picked up the pen. Are you sure you want to do this? Beatrice asked, her face a neutral mask. Once you sign, there's no going back. It's your lot, for better or worse. He thought of Maria, her tearful face. He thought of Leo, splashing in the pool, oblivious to the battles being fought over a simple parking spot. And he thought of Deirdre, her venomous smile. He gripped the pen tighter. I'm sure. He was halfway through the final signature when the door to the office burst open. Stop this! Deirdre Vance shrieked, her voice a piercing, panicked screech. She stood in the doorway, her face flushed with rage, her perfect bob slightly askew. You can't do this! That lot is community property. It's a fire lane. It's for community needs. Beatrice didn't even look up from the papers. It was a privately owned lot, Ms. Vance. The title has been clear for 60 years. You had your chance to buy it, but your association bylaws didn't allow for it, did they? Deirdre ignored her eyes fixed on Alex. You are not a member of this community. You have no right to own property here. I will see to it that this sale is reversed. I will go to the board, to the mayor, to everyone. You will not win. Alex, the pen now a silent testament to his victory, slowly finished his signature. He set the pen down and leaned back in his chair, a slow, triumphant smile spreading across his face. "I believe it's a little too late for that, Ms. Vance," he said, his voice quiet but echoing with a finality that made her flinch. Beatrice slid the last document over to him. It was a single laminated card. "A key. Congratulations, Mr. Ramirez," she said, her voice dry. "You are now the proud owner of a single, highly coveted asphalt parking lot. I'll send you the deed once it's recorded." Alex stood, the key in his hand, and walked past a sputtering, breathless Deirdre. He glanced back at her, at the raw, impotent fury in her eyes, and knew this was just the beginning. The battle was won, but the war was just starting. He walked out into the cool evening air, the sun setting in a brilliant display of orange and purple. The key in his pocket felt like a promise. He had the land, he had the title, and he had an idea that was just crazy enough to work. His car was still at Maria. The sun rose the next morning with an almost theatrical brilliance, casting long, dramatic shadows across the Grand Oaks community. The air, still cool from the night, was full of the promise of a new day. Alex was up before dawn, the triumphant fury of the previous day still a hot, humming current beneath his skin. He had called Maria the night before, after the closing, and her bewildered delight had been a balm to his soul. She had laughed, then cried, then asked him if he was insane. He had simply told her, "Just wait until tomorrow." He arrived at the apartment complex just as the first rays of sunlight were touching the highest peaks of the roofs. The Mustang was where he'd left it, a silent, beautiful beast waiting to be unleashed. He slid into the driver's seat, the leather worn and familiar beneath his hands. The engine rumbled to life with a deep, satisfying growl, a sound that felt like a quiet act of defiance. He didn't go to the main entrance. Instead, he drove around the perimeter of the community, down a little used service road that skirted the back fence. He found it easily, the small, unobtrusive gate he had been told about by Beatrice, secured with a simple padlock. The key in his pocket was not for this padlock. Instead, he had a bolt cutter he had bought at an all-night hardware store. He was not going to give Deirdre any reason to complain about damage. He cut the lock, the sound a sharp metallic pop in the early morning quiet, and pushed the gate open. He drove his car onto his new property. The lot looked different in the light of day. It was smaller than he remembered, a trapezoidal patch of cracked asphalt hemmed in by the manicured landscaping and the community's decorative brick wall. It was a no-man's land, an overlooked sliver of real estate that had now become a battleground. He parked his car with meticulous precision, centered in the middle of the lot, its front bumper a foot from the pool's decorative wall. It was a statement. He had bought the spot and he was going to use it. He spent the next few hours working. First, he used a pressure washer he had borrowed from a friend to clean the asphalt, rinsing away years of neglect and grime. Then he got out a bucket of vibrant yellow paint and a stencil. He laid the stencil down, centered on his car, and with careful, steady strokes, he painted a large, beautiful parking spot with the words, "Reserved for Owner," written in bold lettering. He then added a large, beautiful R and M with an intertwined A, a tribute to his family, his sister, and nephew. He worked quickly, his movements driven by a furious, joyful energy. He was no longer just an angry guest. He was a property owner, and this was his land. By the time the community started to wake up, the sun was high in the sky. The first sounds of the morning, the chirping of birds, the distant hum of a lawnmower, the faint splash of a child in the pool began to filter through the air. And then the first residents started to arrive at the pool. A few people glanced at the freshly painted lot, at the pristine green Mustang, and at Alex, who was now standing proudly beside his car, his arms crossed over his chest. Their expressions ranged from confusion to mild amusement. But as more people arrived, the murmurs began. "Did you see that? The spot next to the pool? It's a reserved spot. Who would have a reserved spot right here? And that car. It's beautiful." Alex saw Maria first. She walked out of the pool gate, a towel wrapped around her waist, a look of utter disbelief on her face. She walked over to him, her eyes wide. "Alex, what did you do?" "I told you. he said, a triumphant grin on his face. I bought it. She shook her head, a slow, disbelieving smile spreading across her face. You're crazy. You really did it. And then she arrived. Deirdre Vance, in her usual uniform of a perfectly tailored sundress and a look of cold, imperious authority. She walked toward the pool gate, a plastic cup of iced tea in her hand, chatting with one of the other residents, a woman named Carol. Carol was a notorious gossip, a social butterfly who fed on any and all community drama. Deirdre stopped dead in her tracks. Her eyes, which had been smiling, narrowed. Her face, which had been relaxed, hardened into a mask of pure, unadulterated fury. She took a step closer, her head tilted, as if trying to decipher the impossible scene before her. The pristine, gleaming Mustang, the freshly painted, bright yellow parking spot, and the words, "Reserved for owner." She looked at Alex, her eyes flaring with impotent rage. What is the meaning of this, Mr. Ramirez? You cannot do this. This is a violation. It's against community bylaws. This is a service lane. I will have that car towed immediately. Actually, you can't, Deirdre, Alex said, his voice calm and steady. This isn't a service lane. It isn't community property. It's mine. I own it. He watched as the information seemed to short-circuit her brain. Her eyes flickered from him to the lot, to the Mustang, and back again. She didn't want to believe him. She couldn't. That's impossible, she sputtered. That lot belongs to the association. I am the president of the association. I would know. I have the deed right here, Alex said, pulling the laminated card out of his pocket. It wasn't the deed, of course, but it was the key to his victory. The title was the only proof he needed, and he had the original with Beatrice. He knew she would be in for a rude awakening when she checked the county records. I own this lot. Parcel 047A. I'm an official tax-paying property owner of Grand Oaks. And as a property owner, I have the right to park on my own land. Deirdre's face went white. Her perfectly made-up lips trembled. She turned to Carol, who was now standing behind her, a look of rapt fascination on her face. Carol, he's lying. He's crazy. He's a troublemaker. He can't just buy a piece of the community. He can if it was never part of the community in the first place. Deirdre, a voice said from behind her. It was Maria. She had walked over to them, her smile serene and knowing. Deirdre rounded on her, her eyes blazing with fury. This is your fault. You allowed this. You're just as bad as he is. No, Deirdre, Maria said, her voice now firm and full of a quiet strength. This isn't my fault. This is what happens when you abuse your power. This is what happens when you use your position to bully people. This is on you. The crowd of residents had grown. People were standing in small groups, whispering, pointing, a collective gasp of disbelief and amusement rippling through the air. The gossip mill, fueled by Carol and others, was working at light speed. Alex could see the looks on their faces. They weren't judging him. They were watching the show. Deirdre's fury reached a boiling point. She took a step toward Alex, her hand raised, as if to slap him. You will regret this, Mr. Ramirez, she hissed, her voice low and filled with venom. I will make sure you regret the day you ever thought of defying me. I will find a way to get rid of you and your car. You won't be here for long. I promise you. Alex didn't flinch. He just smiled, a slow, confident smile. I'm not a guest anymore, Deirdre. I'm a resident. And you can't tow a resident's car when it's parked on their own property. He then gestured to a small sign he had painted and placed on an easel he had bought at the art supply store. The sign, painted in the same yellow as the parking spot, had a simple message. Grand Oaks' first annual car show. Today, 10 hours a.m. Deirdre's scream wasn't loud, but it was a sound of such pure, white-hot fury that it cut through the murmuring crowd like a knife. Her perfect manicured hand pointed at the sign on the easel, then at Alex, then at her own trembling chest. A car show! She shrieked, the syllables coming out as strained, strangled gasps. You think you can just organize an event on community property? This is an unsanctioned public gathering. It's against bylaws. It's a violation of everything. Alex didn't respond. He just watched her, a calm, unshakable presence. Maria stepped forward, her hand on Deirdre's arm. Deirdre, calm down. It's not community property. Alex bought it. I'm the president. she spat, shaking off Maria's touch. "I know what's community property and what isn't. This is a disgrace, an eyesore. I will have you both removed from this property." She yanked her phone from her purse, her fingers flying across the screen. The small crowd that had gathered by the pool gate was growing. Carol, the gossip, was already on the phone, her voice a hushed, excited whisper. Others stood with their arms crossed, a mix of shock and amusement on their faces. Some were even starting to take pictures. "Don't you dare!" Deirdre snapped at a young man who was holding his phone up, a grin spreading across his face. "I am the president of this association, and I will not have this documented." Alex simply walked past her, the sign under his arm. He leaned it against the brick wall, a clear, unmistakable invitation. He then pulled out a small foldable table and 2 folding chairs from the trunk of his Mustang, setting them up near the pool entrance. It was a simple gesture, but it sent a clear message. He was here to stay. Over the next hour, Deirdre's frantic phone calls escalated from threats to full-blown hysteria. Alex could hear her voice, a high-pitched, frantic whine as she paced back and forth, her iced tea forgotten on a lounge chair. He heard her call the police, then the county clerk's office, then the fire department. Each time he could see her face drop in defeat. The police told her it was a civil matter and that they could do nothing as long as Alex was on his own private property. The clerk's office confirmed that the deed to parcel 047A was indeed in the name of Alexander Ramirez. The fire department simply laughed, telling her that a single car parked on a private lot did not constitute a fire hazard. Deirdre's power, once so absolute and terrifying, was melting away in the face of 2 simple facts: the law and Alex's unwavering resolve. By 10 a.m., the first cars started to arrive. It wasn't a parade of million-dollar vehicles. It was something far more beautiful. A retired professor, a short, kind man named Arthur, drove up in a meticulously restored 1957 Ford Thunderbird, its black paint gleaming. A young mother, who Alex recognized from seeing her at the pool with her kids, pulled up in a cherry-red, custom-built Jeep Wrangler. A few minutes later, an older couple arrived in a vintage VW Beetle, its floral stickers and faded paint a testament to a lifetime of love and adventure. They didn't park in the lot. Alex's Mustang was the star of the show, but they parked in the designated pool lot and walked over, their faces alight with excitement. Word had spread, not just through the community but beyond it. Friends of friends, neighbors of neighbors, all drawn by the absurdity and defiance of the event. A few people even brought their own signs. One, propped on the front seat of a beat-up pickup truck, read, "Property Rights Matter." The car show was a magnificent, chaotic mess. People milled about, drinking the coffee and water Alex had provided and admiring the vehicles. Kids ran around, their laughter a sharp, vibrant contrast to Deirdre's simmering rage. The mood was festive, rebellious, and a little surreal. Deirdre, of course, was not amused. She stood by the gate, her face a mask of bitter indignation. Her phone was still in her hand, her eyes darting from Alex to the cars as if she could will them all away. She finally spotted a weakness, an old, battered minivan, its sides streaked with dirt and its bumper held on with duct tape, pulled up to the pool entrance. The driver, a kind-faced, tired-looking man, was a new resident. His name was Robert, and he was there with his 2 small children, a boy and a girl. They were excited to go for a swim, but as he tried to pull into a spot in the now-full parking lot, Deirdre stepped directly in front of his car. "You can't park here," she said, her voice dripping with the familiar venom. "This lot is full. Go to the overflow lot." "Ma'am, I have 2 small children," Robert said, his voice hesitant. "It's a long walk from the overflow lot." "Then you should have planned better," Deirdre snapped. She gestured wildly to the crowd of people surrounding Alex's car. This monstrosity is causing a traffic and parking hazard. It's all his fault! Now turn around and park where you were supposed to." Robert, a man who clearly hated confrontation, looked at his children in the back seat, their faces already crumpled in disappointment. He looked at Alex, then back at Deirdre. He had seen the entire scene unfold, and he had a choice to make. He could back down or he could join the rebellion. "Ma'am, this is an official car show, isn't it?" he said, his voice low but gaining strength. "This gentleman is a property owner. He has the right to park here." He pulled his minivan forward just enough to put Deirdre on the defensive. Deirdre's face turned scarlet. "I am the president of this association. I will have your name added to the violation list. You will regret this." Alex saw the hesitation in Robert's eyes. He knew this was the moment. He walked over to the minivan, a smile on his face. "Sir, come in." "The lot is full, but my lot is not." He gestured to the empty space behind his Mustang. "You can park on my lot. It's private property. You'll be safe here." Robert's face broke into a relieved smile. He drove his minivan onto the lot and parked it with a sigh of relief. The car show was officially a success. It was a small act of defiance, a simple moment of solidarity. But to Deirdre, it was a public, humiliating defeat. The crowd of residents applauded, a slow, building crescendo of sound. Deirdre stood in the middle of it all, her face a mask of impotent rage and utter defeat. She was a caricature of her former self, a queen with no kingdom. Just then, a sleek, black town car with tinted windows pulled up to the pool gate. Out of the back stepped a man. He was tall and handsome, with a powerful, authoritative presence. He was dressed in a crisp, elegant suit and held a briefcase in his hand. Alex recognized him instantly. He was Daniel Henderson, the last owner of the lot. He had a look of shock and disbelief on his face as he took in the scene. He looked at Alex, then at Deirdre, then at the bustling car show. He walked to the center of the crowd, his eyes fixed on Alex. "What is the meaning of all this, Mr. Ramirez?" he asked, his voice calm but with an undercurrent of steel. Deirdre, seeing the man she knew was a former developer for the community and her last hope, rushed to his side. "Mr. Henderson, thank God you're here. This man is a menace! He has created a public spectacle on community property. You need to stop him immediately!" Mr. Henderson held up a hand, silencing her. "This is not community property, Ms. Vance. I am very aware of that. It's my family's legacy. My father, the original developer of Grand Oaks, designated this as a private, non-commercial parcel to protect it. He intended it as a testament to his vision of individuality within a community. I am here because I heard a community member was causing trouble, and that the original intent of the lot was being threatened. And I see a lot of things here that are not right." He turned to Alex, his gaze softening. "The story of this lot is a long one, son. It was never intended to be a fire lane. It was a symbol. A place for individuals to feel free. You've brought that back to life. You've shown me that this place still has a soul. What you're doing here is not a violation. It's a restoration." He then turned to the crowd, his voice rising, carrying a weight that Deirdre could only dream of. "And as for you, Ms. Vance, my father would have been ashamed of you. You've taken his vision and turned it into a weapon. I am here to tell you that this will not be tolerated. The board, the community, the developer, and the owner of this lot will not tolerate it. I am here to personally make sure of that." He then turned to Alex and smiled. "And I think it's time for me to join this car show." "What a magnificent car, son. Do you mind if I take a look inside? I have a feeling we have a lot to talk about." Deirdre, in a final public moment of utter and complete defeat, staggered back, a look of profound shock on her face. Her power, her position, her entire. The crowd's applause was a tangible thing, a wave of sound that washed over Deirdre Vance and left her shivering in its wake. She stood in the middle of the buzzing lot, a queen dethroned. The look on her face was a masterpiece of human collapse, shock, disbelief, and a profound, agonizing humiliation. The man she had thought was a simple annoyance, a deplorable character to be disposed of with a phone call, had just publicly dismantled her entire life's work. Her reign as the undisputed president of Grand Oaks was over. Daniel Henderson, the man whose family had founded this community, stood beside Alex, his presence a quiet, authoritative force. He gave a nod to Alex's Mustang, the star of the show, and then turned to the crowd, his voice carrying effortlessly. "I am here today to announce that my family foundation will be donating a substantial sum to the Grand Oaks Community Association. But with one condition. We will not be sending any funds until the community's leadership is reformed and its core values of decency and respect are restored." He then looked directly at a silent, fuming Deirdre. "And I think we all know where to start." Deirdre's last vestiges of power evaporated in that single moment. The residents, who had once cowered under her watchful eye, now looked at her with a mix of pity and cold satisfaction. Carol, her former confidant and chief gossip, gave her a wide berth, already whispering to a neighbor about the astonishing turn of events. Deirdre's perfect bob trembled as she turned and fled, not to her home, but to her car, a silver Mercedes. She started it with a roar, reversed in a flash of white exhaust, and sped out of the lot, a vanquished general in full retreat. The tension in the air dissolved, replaced by a celebratory buzz. The car show, which had started as a solo act of defiance, was now a full-blown party. People lined up to shake Alex's hand, to offer him their congratulations, their thanks, and their apologies. The tired-looking man from the minivan, Robert, approached him, his son holding his hand. "My son's a little gearhead," he said, a genuine smile on his face. "Thank you for this. We've been here for 3 months, and this is the first time it's felt like a home." Arthur, the retired professor with the Ford Thunderbird, clapped Alex on the back. "A fine piece of craftsmanship, son, and a finer piece of justice. Your little lot has a history, you know. It was my father who first tried to buy it, but my mother said it was a silly, unbuildable piece of land. I guess she was wrong." He laughed, a deep, rumbling sound. Maria, her face glowing with pride, found a quiet moment to pull Alex aside. "You did it, Alex. You really did it." "You showed her, and you didn't just win, you made a difference. Everyone is talking about it. The community is changing already." The car show continued for the rest of the day. The afternoon sun cast a warm golden light over the lot, illuminating not just the gleaming metal of the cars, but the faces of the people who had gathered to celebrate something more than just horsepower. It was a celebration of community, of defiance, of the power of one person to make a stand against a tyrant. In the days that followed, the consequences for Deirdre were swift and absolute. She was formally censured by the board and faced a vote of no confidence. Her reign was over. She sold her house a few weeks later and moved away, a cautionary tale whispered in the hallowed halls of community association meetings everywhere. As for Alex, he had made a home. Not in the apartment, but in the community itself. His small private parking lot had become a de facto community gathering spot, a place where people would bring their kids, their dogs, and their cars just to hang out and talk. He had his own dedicated parking spot, of course, but he found he didn't use it very often. He was too busy talking to people, to neighbors he had never even met before, all of whom had a story to tell, a car to show, a friend to make. The car show became an annual event, a tradition that was looked forward to all year long. A small, simple symbol of a big, important truth, that a community is built not on rules, but on people. He was sitting on his small fold-out chair one afternoon, a few weeks after the whole affair had blown over, when a new car pulled into the main lot. It was a brand-new Mustang, a sleek, powerful machine of a different color. A woman got out, her face a familiar, kind smile. It was Beatrice Thorne, the real estate agent. "Looks like business is good," Alex said, a grin on his face. "It is," she said, her own smile matching his. "But I wanted to tell you something. I had a long talk with Daniel Henderson. He's decided to rezone the lot for an open space recreational area. He wants to have it in your name, to honor you. But he says he wants to know what you think." Alex looked at her, then at his small lot, the sun glinting off the newly painted lines. He thought of his sister, of her son. He thought of all the people who had rallied around him. He thought of the tiny, useless piece of land he had bought with his life savings. It wasn't a useless piece of land. It was a home. "Tell him thank you," Alex said, his voice full of an emotion that was beyond triumph. "Tell him I'm keeping the lot. And tell him I have an idea for a mural." Beatrice laughed. She walked over to her new Mustang, the engine humming quietly. "So, you're not selling?" she asked. "Not a chance," Alex said. "I'm a property owner now. And this isn't just a parking lot. It's a place for a car show. And it's a monument to the day a community stood up for what's right." He watched her drive away, and then he walked back to his Mustang, the one that had started it all. He sat in the driver's seat, the leather warm and familiar. He had won, not by fighting, but by building. He had found a home, not in a house, but in a community, and in a small, square piece of land that he had bought, all because a Karen said he couldn't park by the pool.